Our primary and closest relationships often are riddled with challenge and disconnection and communication issues. Relational life therapy is an excellent way to get on top of that. Join us today as one of our holistic healers of Orange County, Allison Pena, shares with us about this therapy and how it can start helping you today. My name is Emily Sellis, and I am the host for the Sage Holistic Show. Talk to you soon.
Sage is a 501c3 nonprofit organization building community by providing education and counseling about physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. We encourage all of our listeners to find their own path to what holistic wellness means to you.
Originally from Kansas City, Missouri, been out here for about 7 years. I just had my 7th year in September. Really got thrown from being an elementary school teacher originally into therapy in 2010. So it's been about 10 years that I've been really in this mental health world. And so over that course, it's really been evolving for me. And I know that I think it was, well, I got married. So it was probably almost 2 Aprils ago that I had like an aha moment where I had been working with a lot of individuals. I had started my own private practice and I just was feeling restless, and it clicked. And it's something I learned back in 2010 that I love dyads. I love 2 or more people. So whether it be a family or a couple, and I found that what I had originally loved in 2010 was exactly where I needed to be. And so working with couples has really given me fulfillment in my career. Also, I see, I'll call it magic, but the therapeutic magic that happens between the 2 of them, because I truly believe that we were not raised in vacuums, and a lot of our struggles and issues are because of the interactions with someone else. And so there you have that dyad. So if we can do corrective experiences, or if we can learn how to ask for what we need and want and put boundaries down, that things go a lot smoother. And we really are healing when we have 2 or more people. So that's kind of my passion, is the dyad. So when Robin and I were friends first, and I called her, I think, and I said, oh my gosh, it's the aha moment came. And so here I am, a little over a year. Loved connecting with Robin's, I guess, private practice, and now becoming a group practice, and really have enjoyed polishing and learning how to really help couples, like she said, in the surrounding area. I'm married. I live in Orange. I've been working, we're 100% virtual, so this is kind of where I work. But I want to share with you today about relational life therapy. And this, when I first talked to Robin about wanting to just do couples, the dyad, she introduced me to RLT, Relational Life Therapy. And when I listened to probably, I don't know, probably like 7 hours of Terrence Real, who is the founder of it. And then I took level 1 course, read the book. It touched my heart for a lot of reasons. Basically because my own experience with my own family and my own relationships, I was reading that a lot of what had been missing in my relationships with my family and with previous intimate relationships were a lot of things that I was learning when I was reading RLT. So that's kind of how it all came full circle for me. RLT, I'm going to tell you how it's different than traditional therapy. RLT is very much action orientated. It is, let's really get you in, let's get you what you need, let's work out some past hurts that we might need to go through, and then let's move you on. So traditional therapy can be obviously when 2 people come as a couple to a session, and they share a lot of grievances, resentments, hurts, but they keep coming back when they have issues, keep coming back for a year or plus. And in my private practice, I'd worked with a couple for probably close to a year. And so when I made this shift into RLT, it was very much ask for what you need and want. And if you're not getting it, then it's reevaluating if this relationship is for you. And I'll get into some details about that. Also, Terrence Real, he really focuses on what a traditional marriage was, let's say in the 50s, 60s, where the men, stereotypically would go out, make the money, bring home the bacon, provide for the family. They didn't necessarily have to provide a lot of emotional support to the children or even their wives. And so what has shifted is that now women are saying, well, we actually want you to emotionally connect with us. We need more than just you coming home and sitting in front of the TV or just going to work. And so men, in this traditional sense, have not necessarily evolved to some of the needs that now women or even just other partners may need. So there's the book that I'll hold up. It's called The New Rules of Marriage. So it's very much a modern way of having both individuals really become what I call create a controlled vulnerability between the two. Okay. I love RLT because, like I said, my past experiences and my family and all of that just really blends well. Most issues in relationships, whether there'll be a couple or family, is lack of boundaries. It's just lack of boundaries, people not feeling safe to express what they need and want, and not demanding it. And so what happens is that there's a huge disconnect, and then we create stories in our mind. They don't like me, he's mad at me. So RLT really helps to peel that onion apart, break it down so that there is clear and healthy communication. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of kind of what maybe the first couple sessions look like, and then touch a little bit on some bullet points for our RLT. So ideally, I want to learn in the first session kind of what it's like for each of them experiencing the relationship. So I'll say, what's it like to be married to Bob? And so they'll share each. And that usually takes the whole session. And then the homework, because I'm a big fan of homework, because I only see them 50 minutes once a week. And so this needs to be a continuation of working when I'm not in front of them. So the homework can be, the first one is, I call it's the magic wand, and it's straight from Terry Real's book, but it really helps to identify the changes that you want to see in the relationship, goals, however you want to word it. And so that becomes our foundation. I would like to, I would like to communicate without yelling. That's a change. I would like to take some time each night, 15 minutes, without our cell phones and connect about our day. Okay, so things that are missing, right? They're going to, in that second session, they're going to share those things. The wonderful part about RLT is that it's not you change, you stop doing this, I don't want you to do that. That is then manifested into asking for what you need and want. But after you ask for what you need and want, you have to let go of the outcome, because in RLT, you cannot control the other person. And a lot of couples I see, they really want the other person to change. They just really want the other person to change. And our work is really self-empowerment, okay? So I decide that, I need these things in my marriage, and so I'm going to ask for them in a way that's healthy and appropriate. I'm going to let go of the outcome. I'm going to give the other person a chance to respond, but I'm going to show up in a healthy way. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to cuss. I'm not going to be sarcastic. And if the other person then responds to me and is yelling or sarcastic or, inappropriate, that day I have done what's healthy for me. I've shown up, I've empowered myself to be the healthiest version. You can't control the other person, your partner, if they are not showing up for themselves in the healthiest way that they can show up. Okay. Because what happens is if you show up for yourself and you express yourself, which can be so hard for couples because growing up, we're not taught to, share, I feel sad about this. And we don't necessarily have parents say, gosh, that must be really hard for you to go through that. A lot of validation for emotions just does not happen at homes when they're children. And so it can be nerve-wracking to say, I feel this way and I want this. But when you do that, you put credit into your relationship. So when you empower yourself, you then put credit into the relationship. And it's not trying to get the other person to change, it's showing up and changing you. So that's a big thing that I love, is that it's the art of the relationship empowerment. And just from the book, he says, use the magic of connection to heal ourselves as we learn to change ourselves, not our partners. Okay. Another thing that I just love about it is it identifies the knee-jerk reaction. So how many people here they're knee-jerk reacting? All right. So if you're yelling, if you're that feeling that overcomes you and you're like, knee-jerk reaction is something that we identify and become aware of. And we want to step into what Terry Real calls a second consciousness, which is responding, not reacting. And so I'll use that verbiage, where were you stepping into your second consciousness? It sounds like you really were experiencing a knee-jerk reaction, because mindfulness is really how this stuff works. If you're not being mindful, you're not going to be able to step into a different mindset. You're not going to be able to necessarily self-soothe in a healthy way or regulate yourself. So really either practicing mindfulness and meditation as an individual in order to be mindful of your partner and mindful in how you speak and interact with them. I use the word from him, controlled vulnerability, because without controlled vulnerability, which is basically sharing how you feel, sharing your upsets, sharing what you would like, sharing how something has hurt you, without having the structure around it, that second consciousness, not knee-jerk reaction, this is how I feel, we really can't have intimacy. It really just can't be there because people feel emotionally unsafe to share. There's a lot of sarcasm that can happen. There can be, criticizing, mocking. And so really having a structure in how we share our hurts and our pains, whether it be about the other, what the other person you feel has done to you, or even about your job or your family, having that controlled vulnerability is really essential to really creating some of the change that they might have identified in that second session with the goals and the magic wand. Another thing, again, going with the empowering, so you're empowering yourself to ask for what you need and want and have boundaries, is that he identifies self-skills that are necessary to be intimate. And that's going to be good boundaries, always goes back to boundaries. And boundaries are basically, I say no, and you respect that, okay? And the second one after good boundaries is healthy self-esteem. So really tapping into, and I like to use the word self-worth, because self-worth is kind of that existential, how worthy am I? Do I matter? Is my existence important to people? And so really identifying if there are some really major issues there, or even negative self-concept or self-worth, to get some individual therapy in order to work through some of that. Let's see. And I love Terry Real because he redefined grandiosity for me. So a lot of times there's usually a grandiose person, and it's on a spectrum, so mild, moderate, severe. But they usually step up into the one-up position. And so in this controlled vulnerability, in this empowering oneself through asking for what you need and want and putting boundaries down, we want to stay same as, okay? So if we're communicating, we're staying same as, that's controlled vulnerability, there's healthiness. But once someone steps up into the one-up position, which can be as simple as, and I'm just gonna role play, but Mary, get over here, okay? Right there, one up. And you stepped up into this grandiose kind of stance, because when you talk to someone like that, and telling someone, an adult telling another adult what to do is a poor boundary. Okay, children are different, but I shouldn't be telling Mary to hurry up or come over here. And so immediately I am kind of self-indulged, that knee-jerk reaction. I'm self-indulging in my emotions and just saying, get out of here, come over here. And so making sure that when that grandiose piece steps up, that, you have some repair around it. You catch yourself, that mindfulness that's necessary to do some of this work. So he says, superiority feels good and impairs judgment. And so shame, obviously, if this person's one-upping Mary's immediately one down. Okay, so maintaining that same as is essential. And lastly, I want to run home something called the feedback wheel. And I can't necessarily, I can give it to you if you were interested. But the feedback wheel is speaking effectively to your partner. And the feedback wheel is the tool that I spread around my world. Would probably get tattooed on my back if I was really into it, but it is just my working model. And I actually have it so ingrained in my mind, I just kind of talk like that with my couples. But the feedback wheel is, I'll go through the steps, but it really is, if someone's upset with their partner, it is teaching you how to express yourself, basically have a dialogue that you now have emotions up here, but then they're being brought down through active listening and validation. The art of listening has just gone out the door, and we really just listen to talk or to respond. But active listening makes you actually listen, because you've got to regurgitate it back. You've got to paraphrase back what the person said. That's active listening. Okay, it's not saying I understand. It's not saying, I get it. It's saying, so I heard that when I came in the door and I dropped my keys and walked past you and didn't say hello, that you told yourself that I was mad at you and I didn't care about you. And you feel sad and hurt about that. That's active listening. And I have to listen to be able to regurgitate that back. Okay, so the first step is really asking if the person's in a place to talk. We don't want to force controlled vulnerability through the feedback wheel. We want to ask, hey, are you in a spot to talk? Because someone might have had a tough day. They may have just had a call that was, distressing. So we want to make sure we're both in an emotionally somewhat place to hear each other. And so the second step is to list observable facts. Like I said in my example, when I walked in the door, I dropped the keys, you were on the couch, I didn't say hello. Those are observable facts. Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Okay. The second part is what did I tell myself that we can easily spiral? What did I tell myself that what about my relationship with these facts? I told myself that you were mad at me. I told myself that you didn't care about me. They may have not said this verbatim to you, but we create stories about what we see and hear in our relationships, and we assume. Okay, and so we want to let that person know that because of these observable facts, the story I'm telling myself is that I'm not a priority. Okay, and then the third step is to state that I feel sad about that. I feel hurt. Keep it simple. Okay, and then the next step is to, in the future, ask for what you need and want. So in the future, honey, when I walk in the door and I don't say hi to you, please just remind me to say hi. Or in the future, can you please, not be on the couch when I walk in the door? Can you, meet me at the door or something? So in the future, I need and want this. And that's the problem solving. That's the solution. Okay, I'm asking for what I need and want. I need and want this. Okay, and then the next piece is to then let go of the outcome. We can't control if the other person's going to meet our needs and wants. But I'll tell you, if you go 3 months, 3 years, and you have these needs and wants that you use this format to ask for, and they're not showing up for you for whatever reason, then you might need to reevaluate this relationship, because your needs and your wants aren't being met. And life is just way too short. We deserve what we need and want. We deserve to have healthy relationships and controlled vulnerability. It's essential, because we were not created in vacuums. Relationships are the core and the essence of everything that we do as a therapist and as a non-therapist. So I could probably go on longer, but I won't. But I just really, really love RLT, and it's really changed my life. And here is the book, okay, that I was referencing, The New Rules of Marriage, What You Need to Know to Make Love Work. And I use it frequently, and Rob and I have some other resources. So yeah, that's Relational Life Therapy.
Thank you, Allison. We want to open this up for some, if you guys have some questions that Allison can answer. We have a few minutes that she's right here, people. This is your chance if you have questions.
Oh, Sharon.
Yeah. I'm trained more in the Gottman way, but I love Terry Real's work around mainly his wounded child, adaptive child, and functional adult.
Yes.
So maybe if you could say a few words about how you use that in your work.
Yeah, so, the wounded child, it comes from definitely the origin, the family of origin. And so the wounded child are those needs that you really didn't get met. And what happens is they then manifest into your adult relationships. And so if you're adapting without some professional help or controlled vulnerability or a safe space, then you step into doing some unhealthy things, manipulation, denial. And so identifying that when those are coming out in a relationship, that is your adaptation to this wounded child. And so having to pay attention. On probably the 4th or 5th session, we do a whole session on family of origin. So we really identify, Terry Real says that we really marry our unfinished business from when we were growing up. And so identifying and separating it, like wounded child came out, and then adaptive child came out. And then what does a functioning adult look like? And so I would connect that with asking for what you need and want, the feedback wheel, boundaries, those kind of things. But we do touch quite frequently on the family of origin. A lot of our work is positive forward. So it's not necessarily this deep psychodynamic where I'm really going to bring that in, but we do touch on that. And it's definitely important.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Allison, coming from the EFT couples therapy perspective, I was thinking about how a lot of these steps might be applied in what in EFT we call enactments, which is just, couples turning to each other and sharing.
Right.
And so I was pretty curious about when you get to that deep step of sharing needs and wants, and you're supporting couples and turning to each other to share those needs and wants, maybe for the first time in session, kind of like, lifting the weight for the first time. What are some of the challenges or pitfalls that you've seen, like the first hurdles that couples have that might be a common, again, challenge or pitfall, couples new to this way of sharing that really, deep need or want?
Yeah, the common one is active listening and validation. It is such a lost, I'll say it again, a lost art, the active listening. Traditionally men step into solution, problem solving. And we actually have a really good video that we share with our clients that is called The Nail. And so it's this woman. Have you seen it? She's got a nail on her head and she's like, I have this horrible headache. And her husband's looking at this nail in her middle of her forehead and is like, all he wants to do is just take the darn nail out. But she just wants to feel heard and share how she's feeling. And so that's probably the biggest hurdle. And it's not necessarily just with men. Women too struggle to active listen. And it's not easy to then listen to someone and kind of contain your own emotions about what you're hearing. And then at the same time, paraphrase back without saying verbatimly and give them the gist of what they said. So you have to practice. I've been doing it for 10 years, I tell them. So it's not something that I'm special in. I've just done it so much.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Allison, it's Jim. I
Hi,
know.
Jim.
Hi. From what I've read of Terry, and I love Terry. I love his approach, and I love the language that he uses. But one of the things that he says about the way he does couples work, it breaks like the cardinal rule that I was taught in my couples training, that you give equal time to everybody. And you know, he will spend lots more time with the man if that's where the issue needs to be, and vice versa. How do you deal with that perceived imbalance where one couple starts to feel like, hey, I'm not getting my fair share of time, that sort of thing? And you know, how do you develop the language?
Yeah. So I kind of front load them. I'm a pretty big front loader. I'll let them know that sometimes I will be talking to, you know, Judy a little more than you, Ron. And I just want to let you know that it's not because I'm, you know, trying to not attune or to understand what your needs are, but it's a process. If there is something, whether it be a past traumatic experience that Judy, and I'm making these names up, but that Judy has gone through, whether it be in her family or whether it be in the marriage, I want to actually help them share some of that trauma in a safe way with their partner. And so if it is lopsided, I just try to remind them and initially let them know that it may seem like that. And that's just kind of the modality, and that's what works for us.
I had a question too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you, because I think Terry, for the most part, and why he became so popular was because, you know, we went to like some of his seminars at conferences, and you pretty much watched him tell the man that he was being a jerk.
Right.
So he's kind of bringing back in the confrontation and being okay with confrontations. I'm curious what that looks like for you and how you manage that, because I feel like some of the ways that he says things, I'd be like so scared to say to people.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that. So I will say, and it takes a little bit of a personality, and it takes a therapist who's comfortable with conflict. And so I've learned through my own work that conflict is not you can't avoid conflict. And so conflict, I think, is something, like I said, growing up was not practiced in a healthy way. You know, people were either sweeping things under the rug or, you know, saying don't cry or just shut up, whatever it may be. I call it gentle confrontation. So with Terry's work, if there's a grandiose or a grandiose individual, it's really important that I connect with them. So I have to provide empathy with them, and I have to really pay attention to their needs and wants and try to look past some of those maybe obnoxious, if so to say, behaviors, and really make sure that I, you know, again, front load a little bit, that I may say something, I may say, no, stop, do it again. I may say, you know, that would really, I could see where that could really hurt Judy. So you have to be kind of comfortable with yourself and your own work, I think, to really, like you said, almost bring in confrontation. But I call it gentle confrontation. And I think that's the art of what we do, is that ability to kind of maybe ignite the grandiose person or to shake them up a little bit, but then come back around and make sure to nurture it too.
Thank you for spending some of your time today with us at Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center. If you like what we're all about, please consider supporting our nonprofit organization by making a tax-deductible donation. To do this, you can go to our website at www.sagewellnessctr.org and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. We look forward to spending some time again with you real soon. Take good care.